And again, as usual, before we start, let us all spend a couple of minutes in silence. Invoke the Divine Supreme Being. This sacred Avyakt month of January is coming to a close soon. So let's not forget our promise. Let's, from the workshop today, try to inculcate obedience in our thoughts, words, and actions. Try to be as much obedient as possible to the Supreme Being's directions given in the daily spiritual teachings. And ask yourself, am I ready to apply one change in my life which will help me in becoming a more obedient person? What is that one change? And let me, from today's workshop, try to gain insight into the practical ways of developing obedience. So here we go. Thank you once again, all of you all, for being on time. The participants have started increasing. That's great. Let me just share the screen again. As usual, we have the same participants, so I think it's a bit of repetition, but just to let you know, we have been doing these experiential values workshops now almost since 1 year, 3-4 months now. And the last which we covered was on very two beautiful values of mercy and perseverance in the month of January, the sacred month for all of us. And with this, I'll just stop sharing the screen, and I'm happy to invite our facilitators here. So we have Sister Anu joining from Vancouver. Then we have Sister Preeti joining from Delhi. And as usual, again, Sister Pooja, more in the background, but joining from Nagpur. And yes, how can I forget Dr. Ashok Mehta, our very own guide. Thank you so much, Dr. Mehta, for joining this time as well again. So with this, I would like to pass it on to Sister Preeti for the first activity. Over to you.
Thank you, Manoj, brother. Good evening, all of you. Welcome on board, and we are extremely pleased to have you here. We'll start with a quick icebreaker, as the theme of our workshop is obedience. So I'm sharing a short video on obedience, and I would like every one of you to share your insights. Either you can speak or you can share in the chat, but let's first watch the video.
Obedience is the very best way to show that you believe. Doing exactly what the Lord commands, doing it happily.
everyone has watched the video. Anyone who wants to
दिल्ली का
share,
फुल शोशा है फुल हाई फाई वेडिंग में पीकॉक थीम होनी
you may
चाहिए
please
ऑन स्टेज एग्जॉस्ट
unmute yourself or write on the chat and share whatever insight you have received from this video. Hello. So we have got one sharing that is from Pooja. Insight on obedience video. Obedience is following instructions without questioning. Anyone else who would like to share?
Yes, this is complete submission to the authority. The authority that we can believe in that he is for me, for good. And I know that this is for me only, and I enjoy that authoritative attitude of my Supreme. Thank you.
We have got this insight on chat. Our actions are the best way to show our belief. Dr. Manoj brother says obedience is believing with full faith, no doubt at all. Rashmi says we should always obey the commands of God lovingly and happily, not if no, but. Obedience to follow supreme directions as per his versions, according to Mr. Vijay Pal Malhotra brother. Anyone else who would like to speak on the obedience insight which you have received? Obedience is loyalty, Rachna says. Jujhar Singh, I did not know you could express belief. Anyone else? So overall, whatever responses we have got from Vidhi, we have got surrender to God and have faith that everything is beneficial for me. Obedience is to trust the Almighty blindly. Obedience is to be satisfied. Obedience is to do what's right. You ought to do it whether you like it or not. So we'll summarize here. I think we have got the gist of the insight, and we have got beautiful insights on obedience, and
Well, if people don't have to shy away from sharing, so you all don't want to keep your videos on, that's perfectly fine. You all can at least speak up. So maybe people, I think in the past, we wouldn't have given you all a chance because of time constraints. But Ritu wants to say something. Ritu or anyone else? Okay.
Om Shanti. I'm here to listen
Okay.
and absorb. Thank you. I don't think I know enough.
No problem. That's fine. Thanks for being so honest. Yeah, I think over to you, Preeti Ben. Sorry, I just saw the video had gone, so I was wondering kuch ho gaya kya? That's it. Okay. You have to unmute yourself. Unmute, yeah.
yeah, sorry. So we have got very beautiful insights from everyone, and to summarize, I would say that by obedience, we have understood that we have to surrender to God, and we have full faith, and whether we like it or not, whether it's hard or difficult for us to follow, but if we believe, then definitely obedience is that. Obedience is to be satisfied with self, with others, and God, and we have to believe with purpose and persevere. Obedience is loyalty. So overall, it is surrender, faith, and belief. So let's move on to another exercise, the exercise number 1. And I'll share my screen this to tell you what is this exercise about. So in this exercise, we'll be using Jamboard, and I'll explain to you what is this all about. Basically, the theme of this exercise is converting disobedience into obedience. So I would request all of you to have a paper and pen also with you before we start with the exercise. You don't need to go away from your system. If it is readily available, it is fine. Otherwise, you can use the chat box for sharing. But first, you would see in the chat box, you will find a link which is posted in the chat box. So you have to click on that link which is posted in the chat box. And next you would find icons in the panel on the left side from top. Go to the fourth icon, which is sticky note. I hope everyone is finding it. If you find any difficulty, you can share and we can guide you. But it's very easy. On let me show you also on the screen, my screen. I'll show you uh, how this Jamboard would look like. So, sorry. Just a moment, please. So
That's
if you
okay.
have
So
found
do
that
you? Yeah.
fourth icon, that is the sticky note, then you go to that sticky note and click on it. On one sticky note, type any one disobedience that you still do. Let me share with you a quick example. Like personally, I feel that there are two types of disobedience. Like one is overt, which you can see, and one is covert, which is very subtle. So I would share with one example of mine. In that subtle one, I find that sometimes I get intuition whenever I have to make a decision. I get the intuition, I get the instinct, but my logical minds overanalyze sometimes, and I ignore or just let go of that inner voice which I get or instinct which I get, and I take another decision. Sometimes it happens, and later on I get to know that the instinct or inner voice was the right one. So I understood that this was also disobedience. So sometimes you will get a calling from your inner being or from God, and you just ignore that voice. That is also considered as disobedience, apart from other disobediences which we understand already. So you can write any of your personal disobedience which you feel that you keep doing, and you can write it on one sticky note.
So Preeti
So in,
sister, should I share the screen and show them if there's a problem from your side? Should I do that and show them what the Jamboard looks like?
yeah, yeah,
Is that
yeah,
okay?
you
Yeah.
now actually now fine.
Yeah. So I hope you all can see the screen with the Jamboard. Just tell me yes or no.
Yes, we can see.
Facilitators. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. Right. So I'll just want to maybe as a different perspective. So I hope you all have understood now. We can see you all are scrolling out many things. It's difficult, but as you can see, I'm showing you with the pointer the fourth option on the left-hand side that is called sticky note. So if you can click on that and please write down whatever you want to, and then click save, and that will come up on our screen. So I think it's very easy. It's not so difficult, right? So just to again voice what Sister Preeti said, that whatever disobedience you all feel, it could be as simple as it's in front of the screen over here. Someone has written that I want to stop being lazy. The good thing about the Jamboard is you all are all anonymous. We don't know who's writing what, so that's really great. So don't worry, we are not picking up on your weaknesses at all. And also the answers which will come to you will be coming from anonymous people. So it's really great, but it's a beautiful way of trying to learn online what are my disobediences and what are my obediences, the responses coming from people to those disobediences. So we can still just see 4 or 5 people. If more people can just start writing, it's very easy. Just click on the link. And don't worry about these lines coming in between. We can totally understand. It's new for y'all, so don't worry about that.
See the link here.
Yeah, is the link in the chat box, Dr. Mehta? Yeah. So when you click the link, just again for people who haven't still been able to do it, click the link. It will take you to a new window in the Google Chrome or whatever browser you have opened. And then in that you can see all these coming in front of you. Good, some more people have started writing. Yeah, great. So a lot of questions about diet, about not able to get up in the morning, about not listening to parents. Great. Okay. So, Preeti sister, I'll just overtake. Is that okay? So, so in the meantime, yeah, thanks. So in the meantime, what we can do is, so you all can see now that people have started coming up. So it's good. People are getting used to it. So in order to save time and to, because we have other exercise also to cover. So can I request whoever wants to, what you all can do is, I'll again show you. I'm sure my screen is visible, right, Preeti Ben?
Yeah, your screen is
Yeah.
visible.
So what we have to do is, as you can see, any one box you select, click on the edit button. As you can see, I'm doing it with you all, and write down the answer to that. Oh, I'm sorry, it just disappeared. Sorry. So edit, and then just start writing your answer to that, whatever answer you want to give. So say I'm just writing AAA. So you can just write it and then just save it, and that's it. So some people can start writing their disobediences. The ones who have written can start writing down the answers to those disobediences. So you can give them a solution, right? Yeah, so Pooja sister and other facilitators want to start responding to the disobediences so that people understand what we are trying to say. So I'll just pick up one. I am a diabetic, but I don't follow the diet as advised by my doctor and dietitian. So I'll just write down here. You can put a dash and write down the answer. So see, I have just written down as a doctor a very practical, maybe very frightening answer. Make sure you follow it. Sorry, it's not flu, follow it, because it's either do or die. So as simple as that. So you can just start writing. Great. So someone has written, doctor advised me to exercise daily, but I'm not able to do. So beautiful answer. Try to practice discipline. Fantastic. As I said, please ignore these marks coming in between, because if someone is erasing them also, thank you. Right, I get annoyed despite wanting to be tolerant. So beautiful answer. Count till 20 before you say anything. And patience space. Fantastic. So see, the only limitation of this is I don't know who's answering, but that's fine. But your answers are beautiful. I do not always listen to my parents. So the answer is beautiful. Opinions always differ. We are all different people. Fantastic. Okay. I need to surrender. If I can just request other people, BK, Sujesh, to just mute yourself. I need to surrender to the okay, this is for what? I don't know this. Okay, I'll just read something. The answer is probably I need to surrender to the circumstances and trust in the souls at workplace. I need to remember that I need to have only love, good wishes, and good feelings for myself and for all the souls in the world. Okay, we can do a little bit differently now rather than me doing the talking all the time. If you all can just unmute yourself, the screen is in front of you. You all can just help us with few answers. So I'll just ask this question and someone can unmute and speak. I understand benefits of rising early in the morning, but I can't do it. So anyone wants to speak? A very quick one. Give them a solution for that. Anyone? Or you want to type in the chat box?
Try to
Yeah, go ahead, Denny's sister, go ahead. Yeah.
try to go to bed early and
Great.
make your mind enthusiastic about the morning. Om Shanti.
Fine. Good. So try to go to bed early and also try to maximize your enthusiasm. What benefit you're getting from waking up early? Okay, someone has mentioned Baba. So when I say Baba here, it means about the supreme soul, the supreme energy, what we call very lovingly as God. God says, present me with chart every night, but I sometimes just skip it. Or I present it when I remember. Yeah, beautiful disobedience. So anyone wants to answer? How do we get rid of this disobedience? Right, you can use the chat box. Okay, a simple one. I should go for walks, but I don't want to go, or but I won't. Similar to exercise. Okay, am I not reading others?
Shanti, I would like to answer that. I used to find it
Yes.
difficult to go for walks too, but then I got a dog, and now I have to because he needs to go morning and evening. So it's a good thing to get a dog, I think.
Great. So I need some company to go. Thank you, Ritu, for sharing. Okay, I'll just read one more. It's about my diet, too much and too oily. So someone says start walking and biking as well. Weekly, daily, you will automatically feel guilty to eat such stuff and then it will stop. Wow, very practical. And I'll just read last one because time is just flying. I work hard, but I find it hard to believe in my dreams. Okay, so solution is believe in yourself and surrender rest to universe. So as you can see, the icebreaker, the very nice childish video which we had, some children had sung it, the song, but a very deep meaning behind it. It was like fully surrender to the supreme being and believe, just blindly believe in yourself and do it, and also in the supreme being. It's all about elevated thoughts and action, and universe responds to energy. Right. So I think we can close with this, or if anyone has any other things wants to share, one more sharing we can take, oral sharing.
When I wake up in the
Yeah.
morning, or if I decide to wake up, I always find that I have to be obedient and it comes so naturally. And I know he's there with me and I'm so much in love with him that time. When my eyes open before he wakes me up. So for me to wake up at any time that I decide, maybe 2:30, maybe 3, 3:30. So that is never gives me any tiredness. The whole day I'm just flowing in his love because he's taught me to be obedient. That's it. I love that obedience command from him.
Great. Thank you, Geeta sister.
Thank,
So,
thank you.
right. So, all of you have heard about a lot of disobediences and a few solutions about obedience. And we apologize if this is too techy for you all, but we thought let us change it and let us be more interactive in the form of this. Otherwise, it's more of reflection all the time. But thank you for the people who have been able to contribute, writing, oral, and also for the other participants who have been as a background spectator. But thank you so much, all of you. So I think with this, Preeti sister, we'll move to the next activity. Over to Anu sister. Thank you. I'll just stop sharing.
Thank you, Manoj brother. And yeah, thank you everyone for participating. That was nice activity, I would say. So let me share. Well, as always we do in these exercises, that it was really going from thinking actively, doing something, to the silence, tap into that inner silence, and experience the value of obedience in order to get into our action planning activity. So for that, the very next exercise we'll do is the visualization, being obedient and taking power from the Almighty. As we all saw, so many disobedience, but we want to, but we are not able to. So where we can draw the power to be obedient. We'll go through this visualization. Okay, so everyone, now let's, all of us, go on a journey of visualization to internalize and empower this powerful virtue of obedience. Sit relaxed on your chair, wherever you are. Take a few breaths in and out. Feel relaxed. Your body and mind are relaxed. Now think for a moment about the morning, how it fills up the atmosphere with fresh coolness and gentle breeze. The birds start to chirp, and slowly the daylight becomes brighter, and the sun rises. Feels that the nature is working in total harmony, as if they are being obedient to each other's, as each do their part respectfully. They obey each other's paths, and it results in that calm and harmony in everyone's heart. It fills us with a unique inspiration to start our day and carry on with that highest feelings that the morning gives us. Now bring the focus onto obedience. It feels that obedience can give me the highest authority, because when I can obey the simple rules of life, the rules of the family, when I can obey my elders at home and seniors at workplace, when I can obey the rule of respect in every interaction, whether with elders or youngers, the rule of respect in every teamwork with my colleagues, with my friends, it surely gives me the peace in my heart, gives me the happiness, the dignity of being me, my real self. Being obedient brings the highest reward, joy, and harmony in relationships. Brings success, satisfaction, and contentment in every chore or task or work project. Maybe sometimes the success in a project is not achieved physically, but being respectful and caring for everyone's input will always result in the success of peace, joy, and harmony among all. And finally, most of all, being obedient, that is following the rules of life, the rules of being respectful, kind, and caring to all, brings the highest reward, that is blessings from everyone's heart. Get it after this visualization. Sorry for the interruption. So we come back to obedience. Ask yourself, how can I be obedient? How can I be open to the rules of life, to the instructions of others, of my seniors, my elders? How can I obey the rule of respect and kindness in every connection, relationship, in every interaction? Let me just give respect to all. In no situation I should be disrespectful. So this demands power, and that power is within me. And I know with determination, I can be obedient in every situation of life. But then sometimes, why am I not able to be obedient? ask yourself, what stops me from that? Knowing the beautiful rewards it brings to my life, why cannot I be constantly and always obedient? With such reflections and questions in mind, I bring back my focus into my inner space of silence. And to tap into my inner power, I open up to the source, Green Soul, the divine, with the ocean of love and wisdom, who accepts me as I am, with no judgment, who loves me unconditionally. As I feel the divine loving light showers upon me, it fills me up with total peace, acceptance of me as I am, and it empowers me to be obedient in every aspect. I sit under the gentle shower of the loving energy of the Almighty, where I feel all the resistance, excuses, and weaknesses dissolve, and it restores the clarity for the rules of life and enables my heart to expand, my intellect and mind to open up to obedience. So sitting in this inner silent space of me, as I absorb the power from the divine, I start to see clearly where I need to be obedient and where I'm being disobedient. And then with this clear vision, it becomes simple to shift from disobedience into being obedient. And then the blessings from everyone's heart showers upon me. And with this blessings from the divine, my life becomes bright, the path becomes clear. Let me take in this power from the divine and move on in my life with that beautiful virtue of obedience. So with this, I think we lost some time, but I hope you got a little bit of that empowering feelings within yourself and the connection with the source, where we can, in our silent space, connect and ask ourselves, why, if there is any disobedience, is still in my life? So this connects with our next exercise, enhancing obedience at home or work. And for that, the question that we'll reflect on is, what at least one change I can bring in my routine, in my life, in my behavior, in my physical or mental routine, that can help me inculcate obedience. So at least that one change you can bring to change one disobedience in your life into obedience. And this is the homework you can take home and list out all the things that in which you are disobedient and you can change. So for the session, let's find one thing that you want to change from tomorrow, from now. And we'll take 1 minute to reflect on. And after that, we all request you to share by unmuting, because when we share, we give inspiration to others. Let's take 1 minute to reflect on this question. So I hope you all have got at least one change that you could figure out that you can share with us. And that was the obedience, right? To have the patience to understand as all this disruption happened during the visualization. I noticed. So anyone who would like to share? Will request you to unmute yourself and share.
¿Alguien que quiera compartir?
There's something wrong with Sister Spanish. Let me fix that. Okay, it should work now. So you can continue, Sister, for translation in Spanish. So anyone, we have lost a lot of time. So any sharings? Maybe we can start with Dr. Mehta.
Om Shanti.
I feel that this is the best thing for anyone is to make a list of things that you would like to do first thing in the morning and follow it. This is one way of inculcating them mentally that you're going to follow your own routine well.
Thank you so much for sharing. So somebody else was speaking who would like to share. You can raise your electronic hand or unmute and speak. Maybe we can also ask some new people. I hope you are inspired to share. As we always say that when you share, you spread it. Spread your heart. So others learn too. So anyone who would like to share.
Can I?
Okay, Geeta sister, quickly. Yes.
Okay. Sometimes mental routine has to be changed. We avoid to avoid unnecessary waste thoughts, and when we spend the time in those thoughts, the time is wasted. Time wasted means like we are not following the obedient nature of us, and God loves us if we are saving the time and following His whatever routine He has taught us. Thank you. Thank you.
Time is being lost and God loves when we follow obedience. That's beautiful. And thank you, Pooja sister. She is writing up all of your sharings, and we can at the end. Who else like to share, please? Yes, Julia, go ahead. You have to unmute, please.
Om Shanti. I think a good way to becoming more obedient is to spend time, dedicate some time during the day to churn. So as we read the Murti, in the evening, take time to churn what Baba is saying, what the source is saying. That will help us to become more obedient.
Right, what source is saying. You have to catch that. Thank you. Yes, Jujar Singh, you can share.
I think that when you're being obedient, you should try to do it with love and awareness rather than just trying to do like the minimum possible. So that's what I've learned today. Like like if someone gives you something to do, like you just like you actually want to do it and you express your appreciation like that.
Right. So it's sticking to your plans or intuition that comes to you. You plan yourself and maybe let others not affect you, as I understand. Thank
Yeah,
you.
like with love and like you say it with love rather than just trying to do the minimum. Like that's what I did. That's what I used to do. Like if you wake up like in the morning, right, and you have to do something, like you actually want to, you should be appreciative and like do it with like have that feeling that you want to do it.
Love and appreciation for what you have planned. Okay,
Yeah,
so
love and awareness. Yeah.
sure. Thank you so much. I'll read few from the chat box. I think in Portuguese, somebody says, focusing on the Amrit Vela, as much as I understood. So definitely the morning meditation time is very important. Manoj brother says, stop complaining and start becoming more complete. That's a good change for committing for that. I think again in Spanish or somewhere, again, the routine of Amrit Vela is coming twice. So, okay, no complaints. I think we don't have much time left, and I see in other languages some sharing. So maybe any last sharing, just a quick one change somebody can share. Otherwise, we'll continue with our next activity.
Om Shanti Didi.
Okay, quickly, brother, what is the change?
Om Shanti. Please accept greetings of love, peace, and happiness, all my dear brothers and sisters. We all know Amrit Vela is the best time, but I think to make Amrit Vela is a real Amrit Vela is when while sleeping, the last thoughts to meet Supreme and tell him that whatever we think at Amrit Vela must be happening at Amrit Vela, and it will happen surely. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, brother. Okay, maybe we can see the PowerPoint. Pooja sister, if you can share quickly. We got few, as you can see. Make a checklist and follow it. And avoid unnecessary waste thoughts. It's a waste of time. And churn on spiritual scriptures and try to follow. Do it with love and awareness and focus. And last thoughts before sleeping should be positive. And Amrit Vela, whatever you decide, can give you power to follow through. So thank you so much.
I would like to add something, if you allow.
Yeah, very quickly, few seconds, we are running out of time.
Yes. Many times we are faced with a situation wherein, somebody is instructing or trying to give some instruction, which might not be beneficial for us, okay? Because, nobody is perfect. So in such case, we have to understand that being obedient doesn't mean being obedient to anybody and everybody who comes or crosses our path. It is in such cases, we have to remember what Baba says. Okay, what would Baba have done in such situations? And following Srimad is the most important obedience that we can inculcate in our life, and everything that is according to the Srimad. If that person is, knowingly or unknowingly trying to mislead.
Got it. Thank you so much. Yeah, we'll stop it here. We get it from Arun brother too, that self-appraisal system and total surrender to Baba. So with that, let's move to next activity. Sorry, Manoj brother, I'm late. I pass it over to Brother Manoj.
Thank you so much, Anu sister. So before I forget, Anu sister, please make Dr. Kala here. Thank you so much, Dr. Kala, for joining all the way from Peace Village, New York. And I would just spend 15 more minutes and then I'll give it to you fully. So I'll just finish the 15 minutes which we still have. That's okay? Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you. So, and for others, yeah, sorry, go ahead, please. Yeah, you were saying something.
No, I wasn't saying anything. I said, sure, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So we'll do one thing for the people. There are quite a few new participants I can see. So if you all can just, if you all want to be intimated for these workshops and the talk series, you all can just put down your WhatsApp number and even the emails that we can email you all the review materials and all the PPTs which we share over here. So if you could please do that either to everyone or to Vidhi's sister. You can see Vidhi, she's there in the participant list as well. Okay, so now what I would like to do, as usual, our routine is, we had the talk last weekend, Sister Santosh all the way from Russia. We are so fortunate that we are having seniors amongst us all the time, and we are fortunate that their precious time they are able to give to us to share their churnings. So I'll quickly cover what did Santosh Didi say about understanding obedience. She said that obedience, like any quality, it's a human quality. It's different from machines. And she gave this beautiful example of the coffee machine. So the coffee machine will pour the exact amount of coffee, hot water, sugar, etc., and give you the perfect blend of whatever you want in your taste. But it doesn't mean it's obedient. It's basically, we must say, punctual and doing its job properly. It's more accurate and punctual, but it's not obedience. So obedience is a very important human quality, and Didi mentioned that it's the decoration of a personality. All the values which we have been discussing on our platform since 1.5 years now, it's about decorating our personality. She beautifully mentioned that it's a neutral asset. Like, for example, a knife can cut fruits and give you pleasure so that you can enjoy all the luxury of having fruits. But the same knife can also be used to do something wrong. So it all depends how I want to use that instrument as obedience. And here she mentioned about different categories of obedience. As all of us have been speaking, since the start of workshop, it's been almost 45 minutes now. The first most important obedience is towards God. Quite a few souls in the audience have been mentioning about Baba, Baba. So let me just clarify for new souls who don't know. Baba, when we say, it's very lovingly, I told before as well, we are mentioning about the Supreme Soul, because we very lovingly call the Supreme Soul as Baba. And Srimat, someone said Srimat is those elevated directions which we get from the Supreme Being. That is about obeying those, whatever he's telling us in the Murli, in the elevated teachings, what we call. The next two categories are obedience to our adults, which is either your seniors at home or at work, or even your parents for that matter. And the third is, in your working organization, obedience to your authority, your administrators, your CEOs, etc., wherever you're working. And Didi mentioned that gradation of obedience. Like, for example, if someone tells me right now to end, I have to end it that time. If I end it, say, after 3-4 minutes, I'm just giving an example, that is not obedience. So more important is to realize that when someone is asking me to do something, I should have full faith in that person, or maybe in the Supreme Being, and do it right at that time. I can't be mixing what we call here in our teachings here, parachintan, and other things. What we call is chintan, which is about self, and parachintan is thinking about others. So we don't have to mix our own dictates, what we call in Hindi manmat. Manmat means mixing my own dictates. So Didi mentioned here that an easy example could be the value of happiness. Some may feel happy, some may feel extremely happy and share it to others, and some may feel, oh, that's fine, what is it to be so happy about? So similarly, every value, there are a lot of gradations. So if someone is trying to obey an order after the work is done, and he says, oh, I was busy, sorry, I wouldn't do, but can I do it right now? It's of no point doing it right now, because the job has already been done by someone else. So that's what Didi was trying to point out here. She gave us these 4, I must say, rules of obedience. I like to use the word rules. I think one I've already covered, that obedience is when you do it instantly and immediately when you have been told to do it, not later. Second is, it is to be practiced happily and not out of compulsion. Because when it becomes a compulsion thing, you can see on the right hand side, you have an army person in that dress. So whenever it comes to discipline, compulsion, we think of army men. But it is really has to come from within, that yes, it is my own free will and I'm happily able to do it. Third thing is, it should be full or complete. Like, oh, I obey only half of it, 50%, let 50% someone else do. No, that also is not really obeying. And last but not the least, it should be consistent. That I should really become so obedient that it becomes my second nature. And what we like to call here at Brahma Kumaris, nature and natural. It becomes my natural nature to be obedient. I don't have to really think of it, oh yes, I have to do this for this one. No, it is just my nature, because it's become my part now. It's become a part of my personality. And for this, I'm sure Sister Kala will do a fantastic job, because she'll tell us about who am I. And when we try to recognize this, our inner self, who really am I, and am this an entity which is full of all virtues and all powers. I'm that metaphysical energy, invisible though, but intangible as well. But through any physical means, I'm not approachable, but definitely I can feel myself what I am. So Didi mentioned here that a lot of examples from, she had a science background, so she was mentioning about the gravitational force, that how Newton discovered that he was sitting under the apple tree and then something clicked him, that why did this apple fall down? Why didn't it go above? So that's what we are trying to do, that in our spiritual journey as well, we should try to think this obedience is basically, what is it? What good is it doing for me if I'm obeying the commands of the Supreme Being or the Lord? So she said it's a very good moral asset to have, and it will really bring us huge dividends in the form of a lot of good wishes and goodwill from people, and even blessings, what we call in Hindi duaएं. She spoke about this quote, that there is a great benefit in the very act of obeying God, obeying His supreme directions. That's what I was alluding to before, the Srimad, which He gives us only once in this world cycle. So if you want to know about the world cycle, what time it is going through, I'm sure Sister Kala will cover, and then you can visit the nearest Rajoga Meditation Center as well for that. And moreover, it is happening only once in the entire kalpa, what we call in the cycle, and that is at the confluence age. And the confluence is of where the darkness is getting over, the night is getting over, and the dawn is just about to begin. And Didi also mentioned that this act of obedience is nothing but a transference of responsibility. And an experience accompanying this act is that of freedom and lightness. So it really resonates very well that if we are really obedient to anyone or to even God's directions, we really become very free and light, and then we don't have to think of, oh, what to do, what not to do. And this is what is called transference of responsibility, whereby whatever burden I have on my shoulders, I just put it onto the Supreme Being. Let Him take the burden and let me be free and light. Then as usual, we have a few Q&A session with the seniors. So as everyone, I was amazed. Actually, I was expecting this, that all of us, many of you here are Brahma Kumari students, actually regular ones. And it's very challenging in this very harsh, cold weather everywhere in the world, getting up early in the morning. So the question was, how can I obey God's message, who's asking me to do this Amrit Vela, that beautiful meditation in the early morning, as I'm unable to do so due to two problems: low quality dreams and inadequate sleep. So Didi mentioned that early morning time is the result of what you do throughout the day. So check what wrong has happened or what disobediences I'm doing in the entire day before I go to bed. If others and I are happy with the way I'm using my time, then there should be no obstacle for good sleep. So see what has happened wrong in the entire day. And very important, take care of your thoughts. That's what Didi mentioned here. And even quite a few souls here mentioned that eat less or take care of your eating habits. Try to make sure you're not sleeping on a full tummy, which means a full heavy meal, the night meal, and then getting up will be quite difficult, challenging in the morning. So try to work on your eating habits. An interesting question, I'll just take this as the last one. An IAS officer was asking that he is working under a minister, and the minister is asking him to do some task which is unethical, and it is absolutely going against his conscience. So what should he do? Should he be obedient or just quit the job? So she said that when the authority is giving me such a direction, any such physical authority playing that role of a person is basically, though in that role, it's a soul who's playing that role. But what I have to do is I have to be obedient towards the Supreme. So I must regularly meditate, get that power from the Supreme, and develop that relationship with the Supreme Being. Then as I establish my relationship, Didi mentioned, then have a conversation with that authority, maybe your minister who's there, and to offer him your view and tell him that you're offering the view not as an IAS officer, but as a soul to soul connection, not as a role to role connection. So this way, the humility which you are exuding, the openness with which you are able to put your things, and it is like absolutely being egoless, this can work wonders. And I think it can touch that minister, that yes, whatever he or she is saying would be appropriate to do. So this is a beautiful, I think, answer which Didi gave us in detail, that it is not about the IAS officer saying it is my will, it is about the Supreme Being's will. And this way he won't have to be disobedient. He's neither being he's not revolting as well to the authority, but he's just trying to be establishing a connection with that authority on a soul to soul level. So this is the way things can work out wonders. And I think in the digital world, we all of us have to digitally detox ourselves so that the children around at home can detox themselves. So there's no point complaining that children are addicted when I myself am addicted at home. Wonderful. So with this, I'll just now go on to Sister Kala, who's joining all the way from Peace Village. And since Sister Kala has joined us for the very first time, there are quite a few souls who have joined from the western coast and also from the eastern coast as well of US and Canada. I'm sure they know Kala sister very well, but quite a few Indian audiences. I'll just introduce you briefly, Sister Kala. She's basically a pediatrician, a board certified. When I say board, which means American board certified pediatrician. And she has worked almost all her life after her MBBS at US. So she's almost like a pediatrician from that area. And let me tell you, her spiritual journey is fantastic. She has many achievements. I won't be going in the details, but she has represented the Brahma Kumaris at the UNICEF many times. And she has also been a very integral part of our very famous international initiatives which we have taken. A Million Minutes of Peace Appeal, which was in '86. Then Global Cooperation for a Better World in 1988. Apologies if there's some disturbing sound of firecrackers. I don't know, it suddenly started here, so bear with me for that. And also a latest program since 2001, she's heading that project, Hope in Healthcare. And it's a series of programs for healthcare professionals belonging to the healthcare profession. It really is very helpful if you are involved in that. So many thanks to her for that. And also since 2020, a few other projects are like Feel Well and Heal Well. So as you know, she's really done a lot. And as usual, before I give it to her, I'll just take one more minute and introduce her in the form of a poem, which I always do. So Sister Kala is full of discipline and obedience, and she exudes this beautiful spiritual radiance. She serves the Peace Village with a lot of perseverance and teaches one and all through her exuberance. In her company, there's absolutely no chance for disobedience, because whatever she does is indeed filled with lot of excellence. She communicates with her unique parlance, which leaves all souls spellbound, not by chance. Through her talks, all of us realize our true stance, our true effort where we are standing, and the souls start singing and are ready to dance, because God indeed has given us his divine glance. So with this, I'll just stop sharing, and thank you so much, Sister Kala, once again for your really time as well. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Manoj, and the entire team of those who put this program together, the series together, which I have heard about a lot and have been aware of, but this is my first chance, as you said, to be on the program itself. And I must commend you for continuing the consistency with which you've been continuing this program. As you know that values, many of the values, some values, maybe not so much, but many of the values that you must have talked about and continue to talk about have almost kind of disappeared from the face of the earth. You know, there was a time when I think one of the values or virtues that we talk about is one, you know, obedience for sure, but one of the virtues we talk about is so-called introvertedness, right? And how that name itself, that connotation of that name itself is so upside down in the world. And so it's very important, I think, what the work you're doing to bring back the right connotation and the meaning and the application of these values in daily life. And so my fortune happens to be that of talking about obedience. And from my take on it, I think from what I have heard from the summary briefly, and also the question and answers before that in the workshop, I feel that everyone knows everything, almost, right? And so what is there that can inspire us more? We can even know ourselves very completely if we really just take the time. But this whole aspect of obedience, which externally we can say, what's the definition of obedience? Usually you would say it is your ability or your, capacity to agree with or to say yes to something that you have been told to do, whether it comes as a command or whether it comes as a request, a suggestion, but immediately you say yes, or sometimes maybe not so immediately, but the answer comes, yes, I will do it, I can do it. But I wanted to take it on a slightly different level, this whole aspect of obedience, and that is to examine the state of the mind that allows us to obey or disobey, so to speak. And very quickly, I think Dr. Manoj introduced to you this whole aspect of who am I, and the inner workings of that true identity of who we are, which is really the soul. And as a soul, we have such a huge, huge capacity and potential, and everything that we do, actually, it is the soul that's doing it. And we, of course, look at it as a very tiny living point of light. But within that is what we call the faculties, different faculties that we work with, just as we have the faculty to see, we have the faculty to hear. In the same way, the soul also has some very subtle faculties, and the faculty of the mind is one of them. And so we pay a lot of attention to taking care of ourselves, our other faculties, our physical faculties. But how much do we really take care of the faculty of the mind? And at any given moment, how would you qualify or quantify even the state of the mind? And I think it is how much, one of the ways of explaining or defining it is how much the mind is filled with a sense of values. And to that extent, I feel the mind is healthy, right? The mind is also strong. Now, in terms of obedience, what is the state of the mind that allows you to be obedient externally? And I was thinking about it, and I was really feeling that obedience is really something that happens inside in the mind. Perhaps it's not even something that just happens all of a sudden, but it's a state of the mind. It's a state of mind that we are able to maintain, in which there is a kind of a, not this noisiness, this quietness, so that, when all of a sudden we are told to do something or not do something, or, we have a chance to do something, then it really comes as a clear stimulus for the mind that this is an opportunity, this is a chance, this is my ask. This is the ask out of me at this time. I'm not mixing it with a lot of other kind of thoughts. So there is that stillness of the mind, because what really happens within the soul is, as much as the mind is a conscious mind, but there is also something that is very subconscious and unconscious, and we all know about it. And in the Raj Yoga terminology, we use the word sanskars or memories. Memories, of course, are, you can remember them. But there are memories that you don't remember, and they have become so submerged in the soul. We call them sanskars. And so we have deep-rooted sanskars or traits of perhaps having obeyed, I'm just giving an example, having perhaps obeyed someone and not having a good result out of that. You know, I was told to do something, but I actually ended up being punished for that. I just imagine what kind of memory or feeling or trait it will leave in the soul. So the soul carries those kind of traits or sanskaras. And when it is time now for me to be exposed to say yes or no to someone that's asking me to do something, that memory may pop up, that sanskar may pop up, right? And I may instantly say, you know, whether out of fear, or out of insecurity, out of not knowing what, I would say no. You know, without even thinking, I would say no. And I don't know what's happening, why I said no, but I said no. So that's one reason. And so, but then as a just to counteract that, you know, impulse that we may be having, we also have another faculty within the soul. And that faculty kind of gives you higher guidance. You know, it allows you to travel the higher path, in which we don't just get grounded by what happened way back when, but we are actually dictated and guided by some eternal truths and some natural laws or phenomena that happen. And we call that part of the soul as the intellect, the higher self, the higher faculty that's able to guide us. And that can tell you that, you know, no, there's a lot of good in this, and you can really take a lot of benefit if you really do what you're being told to do. So there's all these different forces that are actually acting on the mind. One is the voice coming from outside. The other is the voice coming from way back when, from my sanskars, you know, of something in the past. And the other is a voice that's coming from my higher self, seeing the benefit, looking into the future, and really looking out for my good. Now, this is why I want to emphasize, you know, one thing here. Although we've been talking a lot about obedience from an external point of view or a person-to-person point of view, perhaps, and maybe that's why, you know, it's giving a lot of times it gives, the connotation is really one, you know, if I obey, it means I'm subservient. If I obey, it means someone is imposing something on me, that I have to do it, that I'm losing my free will. And all of these are connotations when we just use the word obedience in normal day-to-day life. I know this is a very special group of people, and maybe this doesn't apply to you, but usually, you know, when we use the word obedience, even as children these days, you know, the connotation is very different. And so I'm just saying, you know, where does that come from? It is because of, you know, this inner working in which, you know, we feel that we are being dictated by someone else, but not really using our own inner or higher wisdom. But just to remember that, you know, why do we even have a quality or a value such as obedience? And as I said before, you know, the mind, for it to be able to listen to that higher wisdom, there is some kind of obedience in and within itself, isn't it? But I was also thinking in terms of the person-to-person kind of obedience, and I think it was very beautifully covered as you captured the summary about where are the main areas or relationships in our life that we really talk about obedience as an important quality. And in all these relationships, I think there's always this element, I feel, that at any given point in time as human beings, we are limited. We are limited in knowing what is best for us. You know, for example, as a child, a child is limited in knowing what is best, and that the fire burns and the knife cuts and all of these. So the parents definitely have to guide and sometimes put foot down and say what is not good is not good, and you don't touch it. So of course it's part of, it's a good part of sustenance, or growing up children, of course, to give them the right kind of instructions, directions, suggestions. And so there is a lot of good in it, and it's an important quality at that point. The same way also as we grow up, as we have our as students, we are teachers to do it the easy way. Otherwise we could be laboring and using all kinds of long devious methods to find the solution to the problem. But the teacher always gives us easy methods, right? To kind of get to the, kind of gets us, on a certain baseline, so that we use those baseline principles and come up with the solution or the result of the research or whatever we are doing in school. So definitely that's a necessary. As a doctor, for example, or a physician or a healthcare provider of any sort, you know how important obedience is, right? Of course, we don't call it obedience, we call it compliance in that professional term. And oftentimes how you get upset, I would get upset if you've told a patient, you're supposed to take this medicine for a full 1 week and then stop it, and the patient finally says, no, I felt fine within a day or two, and then I stopped the medicine. And I would say, but I didn't tell you that, you had to take it for a full course. So there we call it compliance. Why is that necessary? Because obviously there is some kind of a professional knowledge and experience involved in giving that direction or that, instruction to the patient. So there's always benefit, and there's always some goodwill, isn't it? When we are asking for obedience, there is always some benefit for the person who obeys, and there's always goodwill on the part of the person who is actually giving the instruction. And so not to forget that. So there's a lot of validity to why obedience is necessary and has to be part of our value and has to be part of our full decoration, so to speak. As you heard, that values are our decoration in life, and we do need that. So, and most importantly, I also feel that, obedience is actually a kind of a bridge between people. It's a value that bridges people. And the more we are able to display and practice obedience, again, in a natural way, you can tell that, the other person is automatically drawn to you. So it's a big part of the equation of relationship, I feel. It draws love, it draws attention, it draws help, it draws cooperation, and we even believe it draws blessings. I think especially in the Indian tradition, it's a big thing, right? To be able to obey the elders and seek their blessings before you grow up and go out on your own. So there's a lot to it in terms of that kind of help that comes from the other side. Another big thing is a trust. It's a trust that you develop. Somebody develops in you if they see you, that you're always not only complying, but also you're always obedient and you're on time and you're all of those things. So it's a lot of love, cooperation, trust, and actually I see it as as a big benefit. The big benefits are really about, most importantly, as we talked again before, it makes life easy. It makes us light. The whole energy of how we do things changes, that we don't have to use too much of our intellect. it's like, it's almost like, helping ourselves when we are obedient. That all of you must be aware of this, that it takes a lot more energy to resist something, to oppose something, to question something, to doubt something, and to come out with your own answers, than to have the faith that yes, there is good in this. Of course, it's a matter of coming to that point of faith. In a parent-to-child relationship, it happens automatically. There is no question whether the parent will wish the child well or not. But in other relationships, sometimes it doesn't happen so easily, especially for the authority. All of us have some kind of, maybe this person has an ulterior motive or self-interest, and therefore this person is asking me to do this. So it's just that we have to come to that point of recognition and faith in obeying that person. So as I was saying, the benefits of being obedient is one, it really eases up, the whole personality and the energy, making us very light in, in what we have to do. And I think all of us know for a fact that if you have to rise the ladder, if you have to, go up the ladder of leadership, so for example, and we all know that a good leader is also a good follower, right? A good follower is also a good leader. So at some point in time, we have all seen the importance of following accurately, being disciplined, keeping up with the instructions exactly as, they were given to us, and the result we got out of that. And so there is this whole idea. And I suppose the stricter the orders, the more stringent that the standards of, obedience, the higher you rise, actually, as you can see in the military and in the high government authorities and everything. And so it's a really, really, I think it's an elusive value, actually, that it doesn't come across as a value that has so many benefits. At the offset, seems like, I'm losing more, but actually I'm gaining a lot more than I'm investing or losing while practicing, obedience as such. So sometimes I was thinking today also that, obedience is, one thing is when you're told to do something that could have, a big impact. But the other thing is, sometimes it's just a small little ask. Somebody is asking you to do something and you don't think much of it, and of course it's part of a big project perhaps. And you don't think much of it, and you say, you know what, this is going to take so much time, and I really don't have the energy for it now, or I don't want to do it. You kind of make excuses around excuses, and you kind of say no. But I've also found that, those little chances that we get in life actually may be doorway to big opportunities, because based on those little opportunities, little chances that we take, we are able to open up our fortune to big things. And I think some of you might have heard about this example, since so many of you are, familiar with the BKs. I'm sure you must have heard about this example of Jagdish Pai, who was just one of the students at one point, but our teacher, our founder, Rama Baba, asked him to write an article on some particular subject. And of course, what happened overnight was, the electricity was lost. And so everybody said, okay, there's no light, we can't write. But what did Jagdish Pai do? He went around under the street light, or the one light that was there in the campus, and he did his assignment, and he brought it back next. And the blessing, of course, he got after that was that he would be the public spokesperson, the writer for the whole organization. And he got this big boon. And so he kept up, of course, that boon. So things like that remind you. It was a very tiny little, ask, isn't it? But it opened up his door to so many, such a huge fortune of standing up for the organization. So like that, I've also seen that, there are times when I would have thought not much of, what I was asked to do, but then down the line, it led to something else, and you get chances after chances. And so we have a very nice saying here, and those who take chances, they become chancellors. So although it's not a command, it's not, but it is an opportunity. And that is equally, I equally have the freedom to say yes or no to that. And so the more I am able to be in the right state of mind at that moment, willing to accept and willing to respond with respect, whatever is being asked of me, I feel that's obedience. In other words, it's an inner state of mind that allows us to consider with respect and respond with willingness and acceptance, right? Now, even though externally I may not be able to I'm asked for cooperation for something, I don't have the time, I really don't know how to do it. But internally, I'm saying yes, because I know and I believe it's going to be a lot of benefit in it. And so I'm able to even offer my mental cooperation, subtle cooperation. And I also become part of the obedient, team that's actually making it successful. So obedience is, as much as it is something external, it is also an inner state of mind that allows us to respond any command or request with that very, very deep and genuine respect, and also willingness and acceptance, I feel. How do we cultivate? One is to know that, there was this exercise of getting to know yourself, areas that you're not obedient, and many of you beautifully take up some aspect of the other of obedience, how you're going to actually take it into action. And that's very nice. But I was just thinking, again, going back to this internal aspect of obedience, the spiritual aspect of obedience. One is our conscience, as I was saying, the part of us, the part of the soul that's saying, yes to the right thing, no to the wrong thing. It's actually, we coin it as a conscience, inner voice. A habit of listening to our inner voice. Excuse me. And that's something that we have to cultivate. So I feel that, yes, we can jump into saying that I'm going to be obedient, but the first one that we need to be obedient is to our own inner voice of conscience. Because the conscience knows everything, what's right, what's wrong. Even a little child, if a little child goes and hits another child and comes back, you haven't said anything to him or her, but he starts crying immediately. I don't know how many of you have experienced this, right? So he's the one who has hit the other child. But when he comes back and faces the parent or, whatever the person is, he starts crying. And I've had this many times before. And I wondered always, what's wrong? Obviously, even this little child has a conscience, right, inside, saying that I did something wrong, or I hurt somebody, or I shouldn't have done that, and the guilt is there. But of course, over a period of time, what we tend to do, especially as adults, is we tend to kind of downplay the conscience, suppress the conscience and do one wrong action over the other wrong action over the other wrong action until it gets to be something normal for you. And, right? Our own standard becomes different. So the first practice, or as I was saying, for cultivating, obedience, would be this whole aspect of holding the conscience with a lot of respect and honor and listening to that inner voice. And I believe that's what we do, at the end of the day. I think many of us, we hold, we kind of bring the whole day in front of the screen of the mind, and we ask ourselves, in what aspect did I disobey my own conscience? It's not so much somebody else, but in what aspect did I disobey my own conscience, or something, it's what part of my conscience is still kind of biting me, or, it's lurking, something is lurking behind in my back. I can't even pinpoint sometimes exactly what it is. It may just have been a subtle attitude that I was holding in my mind. I may not have even said anything, but I might have thought something bad for someone. But that will still come back to me at the end of the day. And I would still need to kind of clear it, in other words, clear it so that it doesn't build one on top of the other on top of the other. So I'll need to clear my conscience. So a big part of that, of course, is self-reflection, a regular habit of self-reflection. And as often as you do it is good. End of the day, finally, definitely, but maybe a few times a day. And maybe if a long time has passed by, then take a little longer time, a half a day, a couple of hours, to really do a self-check and a kind of like a mini reflection retreat for yourself, so to speak. The other thing is that, the core of the being of all the souls is truth, right? Every soul is made up of that truth, that light that we talk about, that pure light, that pure consciousness that we talk about. So that is exactly the substance of the soul. But then in our day-to-day life, the degree to which we are able to access that truth varies, right? And for some of us, it even varies from time to time to time to time. So again, how are we able to access that truth and come to that experience of I, the pure, conscient consciousness, the soul, the light? It's only in silence, isn't it? So in silence, for me to be able to align myself, align my external life, my physical life, to that internal truth, again, through silence. And then, of course, there are principles. I call them principles, laws of nature. Of course, we know about laws of the matter, but laws of spirituality, laws of, principles of spirituality, the laws of give and take. For example, the giving of sorrow ends up in taking of sorrow, right? For example. So deep inside, we know all of these things, as I was just saying about this little child, So, but then again, how much do we put our intellect, put our mind and intellect to actually grasp the relevance of that in our life? And this is what I feel happens when we take up spiritual study as a regular habit. Spiritual study in any form, reading spiritual books, like you said before, for us, it's our daily dose of, the godly versions. But the more we listen to it, the more we read it, the more we understand it, the more we are able to really not just treat it as a concept or a reality outside of us, but as a reality that exists inside of us and impacts us in a very deep way, moment to moment, day to day. So spiritual study of, the laws, and that for in the relevance of obedience, as I said, what is really happening when I'm obeying is I'm actually surrendering, right, to my intellect, to that higher authority. In most cases for us, it is of course God, but the surrendering of the intellect takes away a lot of burden of the ego and the burden of responsibility and all of that. So that's a spiritual aspect. So the more we study it and the more we grasp it, the more we're able to do it and embrace obedience as a natural phenomenon. So I really feel that obedience to the self comes first, and that has to do with our conscience, that has to do with our alignment with the truth of the soul, that has to do with complying with the principles and the laws of spirituality, which is of reason and consequence. If you do something, that would happen. If you do that, this would happen. So to come to terms with that, and so that it becomes, when I obey my own self, inner self, my higher wisdom, it becomes easy for me to obey the other, the person who is in charge or authority. For example, even the way we follow the traffic rules, sometimes you can tell, right? Sometimes when I'm not in a good state of mind, then I'm very rash, I'm very, I don't care, I sometimes even don't notice the red light. But there are other times when I have really sat with myself and I'm, calm, I'm composed, I've cleared my conscience. And in those times, you're careful, you're accurate, you're doing what is right, even in terms of the traffic laws, In fact, you even become more courteous, even if the other person is not obeying, you still say, it's okay, let the person go ahead of you. So why? Because you have listened to yourself, you've created that still, stable state of mind in which, you can kind of let go of things that are not right, that are coming, and yet do what is right for you at that moment. And eventually, of course, it will also help others to make right moves. I want to paint a little bit of a history, not so much of a history, but of time, the times that we are in and the cultures that we come from, in terms of obedience, because I think it has a lot to do, as against Eastern versus the Western culture. I think we all know how different we are, in spite of all the mixing and the mingling and the globalization of everything. It's, some things are still ingrained in certain people as they are ingrained from cultural point of view. So, of course, in the Eastern traditions, I think it's a very relationship-centered culture, in most of the relationship-centered culture. And I don't want to exclude or make it a pragmatic statement here, but usually my observation that in most cultures that are relationship-centered, family-centered, you would find that obedience comes easy. It is one of the main qualities within the family, even as we are brought up. Whereas in some cultures where relationships are still good, but they're not the main focus of well-being and progress, other values come in, taking priority. And you do see that obedience is not given that much of importance. And you will ask the question, whose fault is it? Is it the child's fault? Is it the parent's fault, or what? Now, I don't think it's a matter of fault, but I think it's a matter of just how it is, what it is. That as times have, drifted, and as culture has, kind of, what should I say, transformed over the years and over history, I think that deep bond of loving, benevolent relationships has become dilute, and therefore I feel, even when a parent says something to the child, it's taken up sometimes not with that same amount of respect and acceptance, and of course it becomes then mutual. But I feel that this the love in how you say it is so important. So historically speaking and culturally speaking, I think we need to have some consideration of how to deal with people that come our way, and we notice that they are not at all obedient, or they go totally against the authority or whatever. So there are some cultures that have been suppressed, of course, by authority, and so there is a lot of fear, there is a lot of insecurity in following authorities and obeying authorities. So to be culturally also sensitive to these things while we are dealing. Why I'm saying bringing it up is because we may have to give that consideration as we come across people from parts of the world and from historical backgrounds that have a lot of burden that they are carrying from the past of being suppressed and so on by authorities in the name of obedience. So yeah, the very reason why obedience has become a big question mark, or disobedience has become more of a mark, is I think the misuse of the value of obedience. And I want to talk about that a little bit also. It could happen right from the beginning, even from our family setting, in the name of, the parent, the authority figure, to really mistreat children. I mean, and I think we've had quite a history of that, how we would punish children and, and the ways to punish children and to really use violence to punish children. And so I think all of that over the years might have accumulated to this aspect of why should I follow, why should I obey? And so it's just, again, one more part of the equation to remember that it's actually being used or misused to promote an ego structure in many instances, even as parents, and of course, even as authorities. And it's not being said, or the direction is not being given in the right context. So definitely there is cause for disobedience to develop, or at the least, people would obey, but not necessarily with respect. I have to, I have to obey because of fear. I think that was one of the reasons that was cited before. Am I obeying because of fear, or am I obeying because of my respect and love for, sometimes it's not even the person, but just the direction that is given, that there's something benefit for me in this instruction. And so even if it is not told to me in the right way, I am going to still do it. So that kind of an holding on to the principle of obedience. So just to consider that. So it may be more of a reactive, thing. And I think all of us are aware of, how do you deal with children, for example. They will not do exactly as you tell them to, just because you're telling them to do it that way. They'll do it the other way. And so you use reverse psychology, right? So if you don't want them to do something, then you tell them to do something. And if you want them to do something, tell them don't do it. So it's almost like that mental, frame has changed, and again, over the years, in which we have to be really smart to kind of, to work our way through, especially people that we are dealing with, whether as children or whether as our employees, or whether as our patients or whatever, whoever we have to get across an important direction, we have to be now sensible and smart and sensitive to all these issues. So a lot of love when you have to, obedience for me also includes not just me obeying, but how can I encourage obedience in others also. So that is also equally important. So as much as I can be loveful, use reverse psychology by all means. And I also want to bring in this idea of conversation, which is really, it's not that I tell you and you do it and you have to follow it. And that's the end of the story. But as you very well heard, the question come up before. There are times in our life, in our interactions and jobs, professions, these days that we come across, people who give us directions that we don't agree with, right? And so again, a good strategy, which was mentioned already, is a good conversation. And I can't promote it enough, especially for parent-child relationship and compliance kind of issues. It's there is nothing that a good, loveful, respectful conversation cannot achieve, especially if as a parent you feel that your child is very disobedient. And so there must be something on the other side that I'm not aware of, that I need to become aware of, before I can push just my value as a value for the sake of a value. So not to kind of ignore the humanness of the soul that is being disobedient at that time. And finally, I just wanted to also, since so many of you are with the BKs, and I wanted to say just a few words about our, and the other thing I wanted to, and this is where lead on from there, and the best way to promote obedience is, of course, through your own example, right? So we've all heard story of that child, who just sees the parents, lying, the mother's, telling the father that there's a call for you on the call, and the father is telling the mother, tell him I'm not here. And so what does the child hear? What does the child see? Dishonesty. And yet he's being told all the time, why were you not truthful? Why did you lie? So definitely, of course, the precursor of obedience is to have good examples, role models in front of us. So let us all aim to be that. And with that being said, I just wanted to mention the example of Brahma Baba, founder of the Brahma Kumaris, and his level of obedience. And of course, he actually started the organization. He started the whole movement. He was the one who was the recipient of knowledge, the revelations and the realizations that started the whole movement. And yet, in terms of his obedience was to none but one, and that is the one supreme, the one God, right? So, and of course, he is somebody that you don't see, you don't hear, practically speaking, but that internal connection that he developed over time with the Supreme that allowed him to access what is it that God wants me to do at this time. Let me listen to that first. Let me absorb that first. And everything else comes later. And of course, he did, of course, have to face a lot of opposition and obstacles. But his mainstay was, I'm not doing anything on my own, but I'm doing what I'm being told, directed, guided to do by God. So that absolute integrity that he had, not to say that, yes, just because I'm a leader of this organization, I can take over. No, but he was such a great follower in the right sense of the word, following God's knowledge, God's directions that came, of course, through him, but also, God's request, So we have many, many examples and stories of how he never ever took upon himself the ultimate decision or the judgment of anything, but he always would defer to the trust that he had, created, the trust of women. He would always defer to, a messenger that could bring message from God. And so many, many examples of that he was totally, totally obedience personified. And I think for all of us, for in fact to perfect any of these values, I think the easy way and the quick way and the best way to do it is to practice it in our relationship with God, with the Supreme, which is what you've all been talking about, that, I as a soul am limited. I as a soul do not have all the knowledge, all the wisdom. I am not as broad-minded or as far-sighted, but God is. Even when it comes to my personal life, he knows more about me and my attributes and my weaknesses than anybody else. So yes, let me always put that one first in terms of who I listen to, who I absorb from, and who do I follow, even for my personal life, right? Which we call our supreme directions. So I'm going to stop here if it is okay.
So, thank you so much. Wonderful, very deep meanings of how obedience is something on an inner level, as you rightly mentioned, with so many beautiful, very simple but very deep examples, I must say. I'll just take a few questions. Since you mentioned about the Eastern and the Western cultures, there's a question regarding that sometimes those who come from the Eastern culture are less obedient than those who come from the Western world. So do you have any experience with that, and what is the reason of that?
Yes, and it is, as I said, I think I covered it briefly, that sometimes in the name of obedience, we have kind of promoted our own ego, that because I am your father, because I'm your mother, you have to do this, and that's that. You cannot argue with me. Example, right? What do you think happens? Okay, the child would follow with, but deep in the soul, what's the impression that's left of being told to shut up? Don't use your intellect. You are not good for anything. You're always supposed to follow. How does it make one feel, internally, especially as a growing child, right? And I think it kind of puts a resistance to following in general, that, it's such an unpleasant experience that the soul would resist to obey, anyone in authority. As we know, the soul carries these sanskars to the next birth and the next birth. And so over the generations, what might have happened, and this is just my take on it, that, because it was such an obedient and well-structured society and family-oriented society, but the values were misused, abused, so to speak. And therefore, there is a revolt against the resistance to the obedience aspect of it, is what I feel. Whereas in the Western society, it's a more equivocal, you're given your freedom to think on your own also, and you're given the set of norms. This is the best for you, but also you think about it, kind of thing. I'm not saying uniformly that happens all over, but I think it's in general, it's not like a demanding society, from each other, from anybody in the family. One is, of course, parent and child, but also the whole family structure, the norms of behavior. You have to behave this way. So sometimes that becomes a deterrent rather than taking you in the right direction. It kind of takes you in the wrong direction, I think. And so it's really time to examine all our values, the relevance of all our values, and the right use of all our values, I think.
Right. And I'll just take one last question in the interest of time. Someone new to the spiritual concepts of Brahma Kumaris is asking that in the spiritual versions, it is mentioned that God, the Supreme Authority, is your most obedient servant. So, how can the Supreme Authority be a servant? So, you can explain that.
Yes, I think this is a beautiful question, and it is exactly why I said that that all our values we have to learn directly from God. Actually, He's the best demonstrator of all the values. So, servant in the sense that there is nothing that God desires more than the happiness of His children. And therefore, He says, I come to, to serve you, and knowing that the service that is absolutely needed at this time in the world is to bring light of knowledge, the light of wisdom, of spirituality of the soul, so that you can also begin to orient yourself to how you were originally as a soul. So having said that, he plays that part in a very humble way. And he did that, of course, through Brahma Baba, not saying that, he is the supreme most and he can do whatever he wants, but he is your servant in the sense he would be always available, always available, always available at the other times is fine, but available to teach, especially, these spiritual principles. So coming to teach us very, very, very regularly every day. And then, of course, also available to consult with, to talk with, he would do that also. So he doesn't put himself up as a little, emperor somewhere up in the sky, but he comes down to our level and he teaches us, and he, and of course he doesn't want us to just adore him and worship him and put him up on a pedestal, but he really is just simply a servant, as he says. He comes only to bring benefit to us, nothing for himself. So in that way, I think his obedience is totally selfless. The obedience, actually, one of the biggest deterrents in obedience is our own self-interest. We think of what is in it for me, and we stop obeying. But for him, even against all odds, some may listen, some may agree, some may not agree, but continues to serve, continues to consistently serve through his wisdom, his knowledge, his presence, and teaching us this method of remembering him, which we call Raj Yoga, so that we can also become like him, full of all virtues. So yes, we get to see him personally and practically in action at this time through the instruments.
So fantastic. I'm aware of the time, it's just running fast. So I would request, we have seniors amongst us. I'm sure you know both of them very well, Kala sister, Dr. Ashok Mehta and Sister Claudia. So I'll start with Dr. Ashok Mehta first to propose the vote of thanks. Over to you.
Kalaben, thank you very much for bringing about so many aspects. Almost it's like a diamond with multiple facets of expose of the obedience. It's interesting that in our own lives, each one of us have gone through the same. When you are a child, you are obedient. You become young, youthful. At that time, probably you become more revolutionary or revolting against so many things at any given point of time. As doctors or medical students, we are always, we always learn to obey the boss. Whatever he says is right. In the religious parlance also, we always follow. In our spiritual organization, of course, we always believe that we must follow the teachings 100%. The obedience should be 100%. And that's way of harmony and unity. There's no disunity because follow the master, follow the Baba. I think that also brings totally the faculties of peace and love and respect. I think that way the obedience to us is very important. And one of the things the Baba says, which is very important, Balak so Malik. So but as a child, you may give the advice, but if people don't accept it, as a Malik gives the advice, the master, but if somebody doesn't follow the advice, you accept it like a child. I think that's beautiful way of obedience. Thank you very much for giving us the beautiful experience of the various facets of obedience. Such a pleasure to see you after a long time on the screen.
Same here, same here.
Shanti, Kala, it's very nice to have you talking to us about obedience. I like the point when you say, when you obey, you spend less energy. It is true, yeah? Especially when we obey someone that we trust, because we know they're telling us for the best of us. So then when we obey like that, we spend less energy because our responsibilities are gone. So we just give in trust and then we obey. And it's quite nice. I have experience with the patients when we give something and they don't do whatever guidance we gave. Next time when they used to come, I say, did you do that? Just by look at them, they would stop a little bit before the answer. I knew they had not done because they not have that habit of obey the ones who they, even if it's a doctor, they still do not trust. But I think it's quite nice when you point out by obeying, we spend less energy. Thank you very much for all you talk.
Thank you, yeah.
So thank you so much, both of you. And before we move on into the meditation mode with Sister Kala, I'll just make a few announcements. I know it's 9:45 India time, but I have to just finish off the announcements quickly. Yeah. So you have to just hold on, because as Sister Kala mentioned about going into this silence and really seeing my inner core, what's happening inside, why am I not obedient? So we are giving you the chance to do that tomorrow. So India time, it's Sunday 9 to 11, but for the West Coast, it's 7:30 to 9:30. And we have this journey, we have finished the fortnight journey of revising the spiritual versions on obedience. So we are ending with a silence retreat tomorrow. So please do join us. It's a 2-hour retreat for the mind to tap into the power of silence. And as usual, continuing with your journey, I think Vijay Bhai, you can just mute yourself because it's disturbing from your side. Thank you. So we continue after obedience and perseverance. We are now very happy and joyful. So we have with us Rajni Didi, all the way from Japan, the Far East. She's speaking on joy. We call it in Hindi Harsh and Maza. I think one of the participants today in the chat mentioned that why don't you all have some Hindi translation as well. So we'll try to organize that soon, brother. We'll try to do that. And just to please note that this will be on Sunday, not Saturday, and it will be India time morning, so as to suit the times for Japan and Malaysia and that part of the world. So it will be again one day prior for the West Coast of US and Canada, 7:30 on 5th Feb. So we'll be sending out the invitations to you soon. And as usual, the workshop will be following that. And it will be again our very dear sister Maureen, all the way from UK. So we are really fortunate to have the global cooperation for a better world for inculcating values. And lastly, we just want to give you a news that 8 months from now onwards, we have the Dashera festival. So where we invoke all the powers, the Shaktis, what we say in Hindi. So we are planning to start this as a special event for our Values for Life series. And the first very important power is power to detach or withdraw. And we are again fortunate, someone from the West is speaking, Sister Judy from Halifax all the way. And it's a special event on Sunday 13. We'll be keeping you posted. And this is our beautiful, elegant calendar. I always say Sister Kosha, one of our facilitators, has designed this. It gives you a summary of joy and courage talks followed by the workshops. And also we have our values in healthcare, Vihasa self-care Sundays happening. And 13th also in the evening is, as I told you, about the special event. And again, we'll be finishing as usual. What we do is we finish with the silence retreat on that value. So the next month would be the silence retreat on courage. That is Himmat in Hindi. And with this, I'll not take more time now, and over to Sister Kala for the closing meditation. Thank you.
Om Shanti. Let's spend a little time inside, getting to know ourselves, and most importantly, to get to know the mind that I call my mind. I, the soul, a tiny point of living energy and light. I'm the one who guides the mind. I hold the reins of my mind in my hands. And as that guide, I connect with that inner wisdom that comes from God. In silence. When I block out all the other sounds and noises, I begin to listen to the voice of truth. The voice of good. The voice of benevolence. The voice of love. My inner voice. Fueled by God's wisdom. Becomes my guide. For what I think, what I say, what I do. And if anything is not clear, I step into this silence even deeper. Connect with God with my mind. As my parent, as my teacher, as my guide. As my eternal surgeon who knows all my illnesses and weaknesses. Not only do I listen to his directions, but I open my mind to receive all his treasures. The highest knowledge, the purest love, and I allow that knowledge and love to answer my questions, remove my doubts, and lead me on this path. The path of not only finding the good for myself, but also making it good for others. And I already notice that my mind that was scattered has become still. And in the stillness has found the strength to follow. To respond with respect. To be willing to accept and change course if I need to. And to completely surrender to the will of God, the one who is all good. Om Shanti.
So thank you so much once again, Kalabhin, for your time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you again.
To continue our tradition, we still take the picture. I don't want to bring everybody out of beautiful inner silence, but I don't want to miss Sister Kala have among us the picture. So please open up your video and we'll quickly take a picture. Okay, ready everyone? Okay, I got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Manoj, Dr. Ashokmita, Claudia, Anuben, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.